making my handles, I really like to work with natural wood, since I really like the grain and it just looks really organic and I just like it. But you can't just use every single piece of natural wood. Some are really oily and dense and you don't have to stabilize them. But for example, this piece of oak or something, I don't even know what kind of wood it is, but I know for sure this is from the garden and it'll warp. And warping means that a straight piece of wood or whatever warps in a different direction because of moisture in the air. So therefore I can't just use this block of wood for a knife handle. So VacuumChambers.eu was so kind to send me this stabilizing set. And this stabilizing set, which is basically a vacuum chamber and a pump, and I bought myself a little oven as well because I can't use the same oven as in which I make my food. But this allows me to pull a vacuum and stabilize wood. Depending on the set, you get a vacuum chamber and a vacuum gauge and the vacuum pump. On top of that you need a oven which you don't make food in, and the oil for the pump and resin. And you can put some dye inside of the resin, but you don't need that. Personally I like to see the natural colors of the wood, and since I'm not very experienced with stabilizing, I won't use the dye yet, but thanks for sending me that as well. So yeah, those are like the basic components, and then you need like a jar or some sort of reservoir in which you can put resin inside of the chamber. So what was my first impression? When receiving the box I also got this like instruction manual and all kinds of papers about the resin and stabilizing wood, so it's really clear how it works, and if you're like a total beginner into this, it's really simple to stabilize your own wood. So how does this machine work? It's pretty simple actually. It's just a basic vacuum chamber and a gauge, and then here are the switches, and then you turn off this valve and you put this valve open, and then you can place the jar with the wood inside and the resin. You can also just throw the resin and all the wood and all that stuff just directly into the chamber, I think, but that will be such a mess to clean up, so this is way easier. You need to take care that the jar is a little bit higher because the resin will come up a little bit when you're pulling a vacuum. But just the basics of stabilizing are just you put on the lid and then you start pulling a vacuum, and then you time how much time you're pulling a vacuum, and you can, after pulling the vacuum, you know you're done with pulling the vacuum when you don't see any bubbles coming out of the wood anymore, and then after that you leave the wood immersed into the resin for like twice as long as you pulled the vacuum. There's only one thing which is really important, and that's the pump. You can't leave the pump running for like longer than 30 minutes. So after each cycle of 30 minutes you have to switch off the pump, but you can leave the vacuum. You don't have to release the vacuum, release the pressure, you know. You can just leave that, and when it's cooled down you can fire it up again for 30 minutes again, do another cycle until when you have like the desired effect obtained. You can switch everything off, you take it out, immerse it in the resin for like twice as long, and after that you put it in the oven. So this is my resin, and I will have a timer right here to time how much time I'm pulling a vacuum, so that's important. So after basically stabilizing the wood, you cure the resin inside of the oven. Inside of this oven I cured the resin and the wood. And this is how it looked, this is how it came out. And I already put it on a knife. More on that later. I will make a video about this knife too. And I already stabilized another big batch of wood, which is way more efficient because you can fill up the vacuum chamber with the resin and then you can just basically stabilize a whole batch, which is way better. So what do I think about this whole machine? First of all, the customer service was great. On top of that, when I received the package and it was like shipped really nicely, had like the motor and all that stuff, just really carefully shipped and great. And when I got it out, I got like all the papers and all the manuals, so it's really friendly. It's like really beginner friendly. So if you're like totally new into stabilizing, it's really easy to get into it because they have like descriptions of every single part of the vacuum chamber, every single part of how you need to stabilize. So it's really easy to do it, and it wasn't hard for me to do it as well. So yeah, I'm really happy with the results. Normally a piece of wood like this, I would feel the difference between this material, which doesn't expand, and this. I would feel a ridge right here if it was like normal wood. We're not talking about exotic woods, but like the woods I would find right here. I would feel a ridge right here because this would have been like bigger or smaller, but I don't feel that ridge, and this tells me that the wood is stabilized properly. You can also test it by weighing it or something like that. I want to thank VacuumChambers.eu. Really, thank you so much for sponsoring, basically sponsoring this video and gifting me this vacuum chamber for stabilizing. It's really useful. It's gonna be really useful, not only for stabilizing, for so much more. So thanks a lot. VacuumChambers.eu. Be sure to check them out if you want to get into stabilizing. If you need a vacuum chamber for something else, they have a really clear website with which describes perfectly what you can use for which purpose and all that stuff. So VacuumChambers.eu, check it out. Link in the description. Also link to this Facebook in the description. Also be sure to follow my Instagram right here. Also link in the description.